What we've seen from the reports is around, and this is probably a conservative number, is $4.9 billion was lost in just garment export in Q2, which was big for the country. Something that's closer to us as in VC is what we've noticed is we've also seen a 55% decrease in VC money from 2019 to 2020, where this year we've seen only about $45 million invested. The crisis response, however, has been good in Bangladesh relative to Bangladesh. The government has announced a $8 billion stimulus package that targeted various initiatives in the economy, such as public expenditure was increased, widening social safety net coverage was increased as well, and monetary supply in the country was increased. Other things that the stimulus package treated was lowering interest fees, waiving fees for cashing out in mobile services and wallets, and default protections on loans, and disbursements of cash to the 5 million poorest families in the country. We've also seen that the IMF and the World Bank dispersed up to $1 billion in funds over the last 6 months in the country. Finally, also relevant to us is the government has stepped forward to support the country's ecosystem with Bangladesh Startups Fund. Moving forward, what we've seen is actually quite exciting, regardless of the challenges. The challenges really brought a lot of this forward for us is the fact that digital transformation in society is hastening. And what does that mean? Whereas in the past, there may have been some form of discomfort from your demographic in Bangladesh in engaging in services or products that are offered through digital means, people have had no choice and have had to go through that route. And in fact, I've seen it's actually not so bad, and it's okay to order something online or to consume content online, and in fact, much easier than expected, right? So I think we've had a lot of people embracing digital services and products as a result of this. What we've also seen is the IMF has projected Bangladesh to grow by 3.8% in 2020, which is in fact a very impressive statistic when you compare it to regional economies, and not only that, but the global economies, which have been projected to regress. Another very interesting statistic is the fact that remittance hit a record for the year with an increase of 63% for July alone. And that's in contradiction to all these expats that have lost their jobs. But to quote word for word what the World Bank stated about this is the fact that there was an impact on global economic slowdown due to travel restrictions. It was countered by the fact that Bangladeshis abroad have had to send remittance through formal channels rather than informal channels because they couldn't take it by hand on travel restrictions, right? So for us, what's that conclusion for us, at least at Razor Capital? What we concluded from that piece of information is that this is an opportunity for a lot of aspiring and established tech companies to support the formalization of the money flow between in and out of Bangladesh, and even to some extent digitize this. And the fact that there has been a digital transformation occurring in the society, they're perfectly placed to do this. Benefits out of this is very obvious, right? At the end of the day, you'll have lower fees. I mean, I've had experience with remitting from Western Union, and they have to take unreasonably big fees, which is why probably people go to the informal channels. We can have also additional transparency and KYC by digital money transfers. And then finally, we've seen that there was 4 new Bangladesh dedicated funds that have committed approximately 125 million, which includes the Bangladeshi government through Bangladesh Startups, the other funds being Anchorless, SBK Ventures, and IDLC Ventures. So looking at this very briefly, we've had a very difficult year, but very promising signs ahead. To go forward, I'm going to hand over the floor to my colleague and partner, Afshin, who will take you guys through the ecosystem funding as well as our fund, Monsoon Tech.
Thank you, Sama, and thank you everybody for joining today. So I'll cover from now on. So the ecosystem has been growing steadily over the last 3 years, as you can see, and capital has been flowing towards the Bangladeshi ecosystem. We had about $120 million of funding in 2019 and slightly less in 2018, with the majority of the capital going towards ride-sharing companies and such as Shohoj, Patal, FinTech, Darling, and Pioneer Bcash, and other e-commerce companies such as Daraz, Sindabad, Chalda, Peekaboo, Evali, etc. the sizes of the rounds increase, as well as the number of international institutional investors. Nevertheless, the great majority of these investors have invested in single opportunities. And this highlights the opportunistic nature of these investors' approach in the way they deal with Bangladesh. Even though with a drop of funding this year, falling by 55%, it contrasts to the last year, but Bangladesh still bagged in $45 million in investment, and it still remains the third most successful year in terms of funding. Obviously, as you can see, the lion's share of this year's funding went to ShopUp and Chaldal. Those startups are in the retail and commerce sector, who had also quite the growth this year, so it's totally justified. But on the other end, we see that the remaining funds went to startups that are maturing seed startups that stayed on their growth course independently of COVID, and were less affected by the need of capital in opposition to the more mature startups that had to make calculated bets and choices on where to deploy the capital. So we hope that we'll see an uptick again in 2021. So now let's move on to Monsoon Tech. As some of you might know, Monsoon Tech is Razor Capital's dedicated investment vehicle based out of Luxembourg. We are focused on investing in the best early growth stage startups out of Bangladesh. So what qualifies a startup to be considered a potential investment? It's quite simple. So we look for exceptional founders who want to become actors of change, who believe in the power of market creating innovation, and this through products with meaningful scale and measurable impact. Startups that manifest extraordinary growth based on real market demands and not buying users, for example. So our goal is to build a stringently curated portfolio, prioritizing quality over quantity. And we're looking at specific sectors. So we're looking at media, logistics, fintech, data analytics, supply chain, and enterprise solutions. And we are very proud to have three fantastic portfolio companies that we deem being the best in their categories. We have Bongo, the leading digital media player in the country. Chaldal, the innovators in on-demand grocery deliveries in high-density areas. And we have Loosely Coupled Technologies that are applying artificial intelligence and data analytics to bridge the digital gap for all. But before we leave the floor to the founders of these great startups and that will take us through their journey in 2020, let's have a quick overview of our portfolio. So when COVID hit after our last trip to Bangladesh in February, we decided to take a hold on underwriting new companies and hold on to whatever cash we had as contingencies for the portfolios in case something would happen, and make sure they are capitalized enough to weather the storm. We're glad to announce that none of our portfolio companies required a bailout. And on the contrary, we saw greater demand from the market on the products and services our companies are offering during COVID season. Having said that, we exercise a portion of our option to invest additional growth capital into Loosely Coupled in what we'll think will prove to be a great deal for Monsoon Tech in the future. From a valuation perspective, we saw an uptick in two of our companies. Bongo, we came in a valuation cap of 36 million, and the latest valuation for the company is $55 million. So we have secured a convertible note capped at that valuation and are currently in talks with a handful of VCs and corporates to complete a $10 million Series B at similar pricing. On Chaldal, the valuation moved up 20% to $33.5 million after successful signing of a term sheet from an emerging markets hedge fund, as well as a top-up from IFC and other existing investors. And this Series B1 should be closed by the year end. But finally, we see quite a healthy pipeline in 2021 from Bangladesh. All three of our portfolio companies will be doing up rounds in 2021 on the basis of their growth and success in 2020. Further, there are a handful of exciting young opportunities that we're closely monitoring, and funds permitting, we will like to close on two new ones in 2021. So moving on from the introduction of Monsoon Tech, if you have any questions and comments, please do not hesitate to share them with us or in the chat. We will cover them later during the Q&A. So now we're sharing at the floor with our startup founders who will give us an overview on their journey in 2020. So now let's start with Bongo. Ahad, the floor is yours. Would you be happy to run us through 2020 and tell us how you made it through the storm and what the future looks like for Bongo? Thank you.
Thanks, Afshin, and thank you to Razor Capital and to everybody who's on this call. It feels very weird looking at my screen, talking to all of you guys. You know, I'm used to being able to stand in front of you guys and share with you the stories and what Bongo's doing. And, you know, after that, being on a boat with everybody and having amazing Lebanese food and amazing Lebanese hospitality, although the Lebanese hospitality hasn't changed. You know, it's really a different experience now, but nevertheless, thank you, Razor, for hosting this this conference with everybody. As we all know, it's been a very, very strange year. Overall, I would say that despite the bumps that we've hit with COVID, it's still been a very good year for Bongo. We ended the year, or we will be ending the year, with increased and improved metrics across all our verticals, except for revenue, which has taken a bit of a bump due to reasons related to COVID. But our watch time has gone up, our user numbers have gone up, our margins have improved, we're profitable, we're now exceeding pre-COVID revenue and margin numbers. So overall, we've been doing pretty well as a business. I remember 2 or 3 years ago standing in front of everybody in Beirut and proudly telling you guys that Bongo now has more users than all of Lebanon. And I think that was a statistic that everyone was really surprised by. Well, things have really changed, and I'm sure if you've been following the numbers and our reports and our progress, we now have more users than Russia. We are reaching almost 150 million people, unique monthly active users. That's 150 million unique people on a monthly basis that are consuming our content or accessing our videos across the world. If Bongo were a country in terms of its monthly reach, we would be the 9th most populated country in the world. So just think about that for a second, where we've come in the last few years and how fast we've grown. It really is humbling to look at the numbers. Aside from that, we started the year really looking at growth mode. We were planning to, 2020 was supposed to be a year of real acceleration. We were planning to grow. We were planning to raise our funding in Series B, which I'll also touch on a little bit. We made some really good key hires. We hired a CFO who joined us. He was the head of finance at Vodafone in UK, and he moved to Bangladesh in January. We hired a CTO who was ex-BlackBerry, ex-IBM, and really experienced, based out of Canada, who's also moved to Bangladesh recently. And we've really added to our senior management team, which has given us a huge boost and given us a lot of confidence going forward. We were also planning to open a London office to attract global talent. We were planning to produce 6 movies this year. We were planning to invest in content production facilities to increase them, into post-production facilities. And we had a lot of plans, but then of course COVID came and things changed a little bit. Before COVID did come, we were able to actually produce our first feature film called The Adventure of Sundarbans. It's not been released yet, but it's very exciting that we were able to actually complete production on it before the lockdowns hit. So that is sitting on our shelf, and we're waiting for the right time to release that. And another very exciting thing on the content side is that we co-produced our first film. So it's our second feature, but our first co-production with Farooqi, who's one of the most famous directors in Bangladesh. And we had Nawazuddin Siddiqui, who is the main star. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with Sacred Games, but he's the main star of that, which is a Netflix original. Very famous in India. And after seeing the first cut of the movie, A.R. Rahman, who's a Grammy award-winning musician and music producer, actually came onto the project as a producer. So it's really a international, global production. After the movie was completed, we got an offer from HBO to buy out the entire project. We said no because we wanted to release it, and we really want that value that those stars associated with it bring to the project on our platform. So we're really excited about that, and we will keep you guys updated about what happens with that. So then, of course, COVID hit and everything changed. All of our plans were kind of put on halt, and we were right at the end of our 6 months of painstaking due diligence, where we had KPMG looking through every single line of our accounts, and DLA Piper looking literally through line by line through thousands and thousands and thousands of documents. 6 months of this went by, term sheet signed, everything done. Money was supposed to be signed in, the contract was supposed to be signed in April, and then of course COVID came and the funding was put on pause. And at that point, we really had to look at the business and see, where are we and how do we sustain? We have to assume the worst. We don't know what's going to happen. Of course, everything was very unpredictable at that point, and we had to really plan that things were not going to get better. We might not get funding, and to reevaluate the business and see how we're going to navigate to be self-sustainable. And I think in hindsight, it really helped our business. We've come out of it stronger. We had to identify where is the fat in the business, how do we streamline operations, how do we reduce our expenses, how do we increase efficiency, how do we get the most out of every team and out of every individual, how do we monitor each individual, and how does each individual know how they're being monitored, what are their objectives and KPIs. And I think that our operations have really become more streamlined. We've implemented a lot of processes. We've really focused on corporate governance. We've really focused on margins. At the end of the day, this whole bubble of tech valuations and we have this many users, so we're worth this much. Those days are gone. They're behind us. Right now, at least the way I see things in this climate, in this world, investors, you guys, you want to see a path to profitability. We want to demonstrate that we are a company that is based on solid fundamentals, that has a real path to profitability, and that can be a money-making business. It's not about showing you fancy numbers and showing you we have this many users and this and that. It's about building a business that is sustainable. And through our reactive measures to COVID, in putting ourselves in a situation where it's life or death, where we have to really gear ourselves for survival, we were able to come out of it in a position where I think we're really strong. We really put a lot of focus on the BongoBD platform. In March, we decided to make it free. Our watch time went up 10 times in that month alone, and those numbers have really sustained since then. And we have we've managed to maintain that user base and those people on the platform. Going forward into next year, our main focus is going to be on content. We really want to focus on original content. We want to go back to our plans for this year, where we're going to be focusing on producing a lot of feature films, a lot of dramas, and really controlling the flow of content. Once we start producing content on our own, we're able to tie up the talent. We're able to control when the movies or dramas are being released. We're able to tie up with the advertisers, tie up the distribution, and really put a lot of the control and the factors in our own hands. This year, we also expanded into different types of content. We tied up with UNICEF, we tied up with the UN, with USAID. For Sesame Street, the UN actually funded the Bangladeshi version of Sesame Street, which we've recently signed a partnership with them for. So that's very exciting. We launched a kids content, a kids section on the platform, which has been really well, and we're really focusing on pushing that. We've also, from a SaaS perspective, from the B2B perspective, expanded our horizons and moved beyond entertainment. So we've done a SaaS deal for an education platform in the States, and that's been very exciting because it's shown us that the technology and the platform that we've built is really scalable beyond entertainment, and there are a lot of other use cases for what we're building and a lot of other applications for us, which I think is very exciting for the future. Going beyond that into 2021, some of the other focuses are really building on the SaaS platform and the opportunity to work with other potential clients. We also believe there's a huge opportunity in the media industry and within the ISPs in Bangladesh, where we can really capitalize on the potential synergies there. With regards to our funding, we have restarted the communication with the company that we were supposed to do fundraising with in March, and we have another potential term sheet on the table. So we are hopeful that we will be able to conclude funding in Q1 or Q2 of next year, which will be great for us because we'll be able to really expand. The way I see it is, if Bongo were a race car, then 2020 we spent in the pit stop. We really fine-tuned our car. We've revved up our engine and everything is good to go. 2021 is the year where we put the pedal to the metal. We know where the finish line is, and we're well on our way there. Overall, I'm very, very excited. I think that this year has really proven to us that we're able to navigate the storm and really come out of it stronger. We're a sustainable business. We're profitable. We know where we need to go. By taking a step back, it's allowed us to really focus. It's allowed us to identify where are the problems, where are the risks, but also where are the opportunities. It's allowed us to assess where our focus should be. And looking at a macro picture of the digital entertainment industry and where Bongo stands, I really see a global opportunity here, because there's a big gap in the digital entertainment world where there's highly curated content with platforms such as Netflix, and there's highly user-generated content platforms such as YouTube or social media platforms such as Facebook. But really, there's nothing in the middle which allows content producers to distribute and monetize their content in a cost-effective manner, where they're able to monetize their content not just from advertising or from subscriptions, but through microtransactions, through gifting, through merchandising, and through a variety of other platforms. Through a few test case scenarios, we've been able to effectively prove that taking a content producer who's very popular on YouTube, for example, an influencer such as Tohid Afridi, who has close to 5 million subscribers, to take him, put him on the Bongo platform, and to be able to earn him more money. We've been able to prove that. We've been able to prove the model. We have a captive audience, as I said, of almost 150 million people every month. We've been able to prove that the model works, the product works. Right now, our challenge is monetization. If we look at our revenue versus our user base, the monetization is actually very, very little. Just to do very high level numbers. And of course, it'll take us some time to get there. But say we have 150 million users and we're able to monetize $1 a month per user. That's $150 million a month. That's $1.8 billion a year. And yeah, it'll take us some time to get there. But from our current user base, that path is there. That opportunity is there. And I'm very, very excited. And I thank all of you guys for your continued support. I could go on for hours, so I would love to pick up this conversation with any of you who want to hear more or know more. I'd love to have follow-up discussions with any of you guys. And I'm around for any questions. And thank you all for your continued support. Thank you, Razor Capital. And thank you for the opportunity to share the story with you guys.
Thank you, Ahad, for this very uplifting presentation. So I guess we already have a few questions for the Q&A session later on. So I'm sure we'll be able to touch base on that at the end. But yes, if you have any further questions, feel free to send them to Osama or write them in the chat. We'll cover that later. So now let's move to loosely coupled technologies. Feroz, you and your team have had quite a roller coaster year. So could you give us a view on how 2020 went for you and tell us how you made it through the storm? And yeah, how the future looks like for Loosely Coupled. Thank you, Feroz.
Okay. Hi, thank you, Arshan, and thank you, Razor Capital team, for arranging this event. Yes, undoubtedly, 2020 has been a very interesting year for us. Why I would say interesting, because the time is very, very much interesting, but it has been very, very busy year for us, because whatever we thought that we will be doing and whatever things we were really planning to do, 2020 has really pushed us to accelerate things beyond almost everything. So basically, when we first onboarded Razorcap in our overall shareholding structure, we were looking at a productized version of artificial intelligence and the automated sales, because we were actually the proponent of the digital transformed version of the business scenario. So Initially, when we were pitching to people, everyone was like very skeptic. Yes, we are exploring. Yes, this is going to be the new thing, and this is how probably things will turn up. But when actually COVID hit, it was kind of like everyone really had to go back and rethink how they will be doing their businesses going forward. So if I look at from loosely coupled point of view, our revenue was very much, or our overall base was very much with the multinationals and large enterprises and project-based revenues, because we were serving like government organization or large consulting companies like Boston Consulting Group or advertising company like Mindshare. And through them, we were mainly serving the large multinationals for different marketing, social listening, data analytics solutions. And once we onboarded Razorcap, we moved from that project-based model to product-based model, and we were more focused on this like productization of this artificial intelligence product, and we were moving along that line. And when like around March 2020, when actually COVID struck, what we saw that this direction was really like proved kind of positive for us. Why? Because the enterprise market really stopped, because no one was moving at all. The enterprise market was like completely stuck for like 2-3 months. They were all watching moving, and we were also we also took a step back from the enterprise market. So we were not also going very strong on the enterprise market. Rather, our SME product line, the Easy Assist, that is what we also pushed out. We actually partnered with Malaysian government for their digital versus COVID initiative. And we actually started pushing out for transforming small and medium-sized businesses to digital sales platform. And if you look at the current market trend for SMEs, the major placement for doing business was either come up with your own web platform or e-commerce platform, or sell in the marketplace, or you can actually sell in the Facebook. So looking at the demand of the time, if you want to transform digitally, doing business in Facebook is the most easy thing that you can do. But you see, doing business in digital environment is not as easy as doing physical business, because in physical business, you just open up a shop, people come, explore your product, and basically if they like it, they will just pay you and you close the sale. But in digital environment, you really need to create contents and do a lot of different things. So transforming them to digital requires a lot of processes, lot of education, and a lot of other things. And what we found out is, like, it's not only education, the infrastructure and all other things are also very much important, because in Bangladesh, the payment infrastructure is a challenging thing. So in logistics is also like one of the like major and critical item that we need to actually take care. And none of these businesses, even if it is a large brand, like renowned brands, like for example, if I talk about Capsai, which is one of the largest like fashion brand in Bangladesh, or even K-Craft. So these are the brands, even when we actually started working with them, they were also not very much aware like how to bring their products into the digital environment. So digitization itself was a big challenge. Side by side, the logistics, payment, and all these things were also very difficult thing to do. So we identified that educating all these merchants are not really going to be an option, because you cannot really educate so many people in such a short time. And side by side, you cannot actually wait for them to die, because if they cannot really transform to digital, you won't be able to actually, like, they won't be surviving, because the physical shops are totally closed. And even like when the markets were opening up, the footfall in the market was also very low. So we really had to push our technology development to a very strong note. And basically the first thing that we needed to automate was basically the advertisement portion. We really had to automate the entire digital advertisement customer handling process. We had to digitize their overall product offering, the way they should be basically putting up their product images, contents, and all these things using our AI-driven different tools. We started producing creatives through AI. We started pushing advertisements through data-driven advertisements. So we started generating custom audience from Facebook using our social listening tool, so that we can actually increase the sales of these people. And the larger brands that we have worked with, for many, I think standing today in December, I can say that for many of them, we have almost doubled their sales compared to even the Eid period sale. So generally in Bangladesh, the Eid period sales is the highest sales, and we have actually exited their Eid time sales this year actually twice. In September, once we have actually exited their Eid time sales, and in December, actually now this is this Bijay Diwas special offers we are running for different of our merchants. And if we look at our sales number for all these merchants, we can see that we have really increased their overall sales. And if I say like before and after scenario, like when we took over these merchants, their overall like digital share for their entire sales basket was, I think, less than 1%, 2% or something. But now for many, like after even opening up, when all the shops are now running, their physical sales are actually going on pretty like at least coming back. I think now we are having almost 30% of their overall total share of sales. So yes, definitely the overall market volume has gone down, but still I think from 2 to 3% to 30%, I think this is something that is we will be considering that through technology, we are actually doing it. Because you see, we primarily believe that technology will be the biggest game changer. Yes, with definitely customers, consumer education, local ecosystem, and all these things will have to support it. But even after this, you see, we cannot educate everyone. We cannot change the entire infrastructure altogether in over a period of 1 month, 2 months, or even a year. So what we can do, we have our capability of building technology, connecting different nodes, and basically creating of an ecosystem for all the businesses and the consumers, so that basically they can operate on their own. And we took a bit of different route. Instead of creating a marketplace, what we did is we enabled the businesses to keep their brand name, and we were their back office kind of solution, so that we enabled them by transforming their entire operations to digital, so that they can actually sell using their own brand name. Like, I am not going to be a like marketplace like Lazada or Amazon or someone. Rather, I will be facilitating all these brands to keep their own name, so that people will know that they're buying from them directly. So they will be able to own the customers, and basically finally be serving those customers straightforward. And we also wanted to keep our focus on building the technologies, so that basically we can always keep on adding value and automate all these small like parts and parcels of the entire business, and we can really help these businesses to grow. I would say like 5 times or 7 times that we generated are kind of exponential growth for those businesses. So that's how basically we focused or refocused or basically accelerated our overall roadmap that we had initially when we onboarded Razorcap in our overall shareholding structure. I think COVID has pushed us to accelerate this whole journey, and we took maybe a bit of different approach. Like, instead of right, left, center going out for growth, we decided to have 5 or 6 quality brands, and we wanted to generate numbers for those brands and basically make sure that yes, we will be able to prove our technology by making those brands significantly big in the digital space. And once we can sustain that, that will actually give us the proof that this technology works for the overall sales growth and revenue growth. Then I think we can always expand, because this is a technology driven thing. So we don't have to employ 20 people to increase like 200 customers. It's basically just existing server space and everything is running. So we just need to add up clients. So the growth is not really the major like obstacle. Like, we definitely have to get customers, but I think once the technology shows the results, it's very easy to actually scale up. And when we were doing this, we also saw a shift in the enterprise clients. And enterprise clients, this time what we saw is like the engineering organizations like oil and gas, or basically the asset management companies, they are really looking into AI and this kind of platforms, because they need to transform their overall operations and reduce down their cost. And we got certain like queries and interest from these oil and gas companies, as well as the infrastructure management companies. So we started building predictive maintenance and operational analytics solution for them. And that is another area where basically we have been like working. And side by side, looking at this kind of successes, we got people like Suzuki interested in our solution, and they brought their entire dealership into the digital space. So this is where basically we primarily focus this year. And I think going forward, we will be pushing further to increase the number of merchants, and probably on the enterprise sides also, like we will be moving ahead with like the engineering automations and operational analytics. So that's how basically we look at the overall space. Okay, I think I'm done, Afshin.
Thank you, Firoz Bhai. A very exciting year ahead. It seems that you found the key on unlocking SME firms to join the digital revolution. So thank you, Firoz. And now we will pass to the next presenter. Last but not least, let's turn to Chaldal, which had an incredible year. Wasim, can you give us a glimpse on your 2020 journey and how bright the future looks like for Chaldal? Thank you. Wasim, you're muted in case you were talking.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Afshin, and thanks everyone for joining. So 2020 has been an extremely challenging year for Chaldal. I think it gave us a sort of maturity and also humility. So just to go by the numbers, like, you know, if I take like December 2019 number, we were roughly at $1 million monthly revenue. And this month we're expecting to clock about roughly more than $3 million. So just by numbers, we in terms of revenue, we have grown about 200%. In terms of users, actually this is slightly outdated. So this is not our quarterly users. Our monthly users are about 72,000 in November. This month we're expecting like maybe 76 or 77,000. So COVID for us was very stressful in the sense that, you know, we are in the business of doing grocery deliveries, and there were a few days in the country where, like, you know, we were the only supplier of groceries available or open for people. So the country went into lockdown around March 26th. And you know, it was, and we were seeing our demand spike right before that. So we basically, our systems completely like collapsed in terms of orders. We were seeing like traffic on our website, which was like 5 or 6 times usual. We had to put in a lot of limits on the website to deal with the orders, because, you know, we were like booked for like 7 days solid, right? So people were willing to wait for groceries for 7 days. Thankfully, we did not have to shut down for any of the days, but we did lose a lot of employees, in the sense that a lot of employees got really scared and you know, stopped coming to work. So about like we had an employee base of 900 right before COVID, and then, you know, it just dropped to 600. So we had like 3 or 4 times the orders, and like, you know, 50-60% of the employees. So we had to figure out how to hire quickly, how to train people quickly. And we, I mean, the management team held on, like, you know, really, really well. So we actually had moved the senior management, because, you know, we all have families, to a hotel where we spent like 6 weeks just stabilizing the system. We got a tremendous amount of support from the government, in the sense that, you know, like support, like in terms of like getting passes, getting clearances, all sort of things like that, even warehousing space to a certain extent. So the COVID madness sort of lasted for from like March, April, May, and then it's we had seen both the number of users and number of and the average basket size spike up, and our suppliers were actually faltering. quite a lot, right? So we had to increase the number of suppliers, like figure out innovative supply chain solutions. But then what happened is that the user acquisition costs during those months were virtually zero. Like we didn't have to do any marketing or anything. It was just like, it was just a tap. Like anytime we opened the slot capacities that we had, we would just it would fill up within an hour. What happened since, like I'd say early June, is that we have retained most of the users, but their average basket sizes have come down. It's no longer the panic buying. So we have traditionally been weak in things like fish. And there was a lot of panic buying, so people would stock up for a long period of time. So because they don't have, we didn't have the capacity to deliver, so they would just buy the entire month's supply or entire 2-week supply at once. But after COVID, while the users stayed on, the average basket size started falling. So we're right now seeing like the basket size that we used to see pre-COVID, but we are seeing like most of the users stick through. Since COVID, like there has been a few operational changes in the sense that we decided to reduce our product offering. We were supporting like 6,000 SKUs after, and after COVID we were only supporting 4,000. And this was optimization that we chose during COVID because we were just like, it's not that easy to stock up, but we're slowly trying to get our service levels back to that of COVID. In terms of customer satisfaction, we have managed to get it. Like we run our daily survey, and that is basically showing us that the customer satisfaction is back to that level. But we had actually launched like a 15-minute delivery service back in February from one of our warehouses, and we had to shut it down because of COVID, and we have not been able to resume it. So one of the plans that we have is to restart that service. During COVID, like we went back to our investors, and we requested that we just raise $5 million, even though we had just closed a B round, because we were unsure how the future would pan out, and we were definitely seeing the growth. And they were kind enough to get a round together of $5 million, which we have closed. And it was actually oversubscribed. We had to turn down like more interest that we currently have. So we are at this moment like well funded in the sense that we have enough runway. We've never been a company with really high burn rates. Like it's always been very controlled. And basically the business, even though it has expanded, the burn rates have not. Right, so it shows that the business fundamentally is unit economics positive. We have managed to hire a lot of engineers in the last few months. So our engineering team size has more than doubled, including we have hired a senior engineer who has worked at Walmart, so has seen a lot of those systems. He's based in Switzerland, and we are starting to hire people in New Zealand. Like, so basically, our thing is that it's very hard to find really high level tech talent in the country. So we don't limit ourselves to Bangladesh when it comes to recruiting tech talent. But we have also been managing to hire, get better talent actually in Bangladesh, because the COVID period actually sort of built our reputation that as a company that that not only just is there to like deliver groceries, but also stands in terms of crisis. We've recently expanded to a second city. Like just this month, we started Narayanganj, and we are planning in the next 2 quarters to open up in 3 or 4 more cities across Bangladesh. We have a ride-sharing license that we have not been using, but we plan on resuming that in the sense that using that to do delivery. So we have the software ready. Our delivery guys are using that software. It's getting beta tested. We'll open it up for part-time riders. So we expect that to help us, improve our logistics significantly. We are also in the process of getting a courier service license, which will help us to build a logistics network across the country. which would allow us, to support a lot of Facebook merchants and also understand where the e-commerce traffic is happening. And should we decide in a few years' time to enter like regular e-commerce, this network would also be quite useful for us. Other than that, we had plans of, say, being in another country by 2021, but there is just plenty of work that needs to get done. We are very hopeful for 2021, and we're going full steam at it. So yeah, that's us.
Thank you very much, Wasim, for this review of the year and the progress done. And I guess the Bangladeshis will be grateful for you for supporting them during the COVID crisis. So before we get to our Q&A and the questions moderated by Usama, we wanted to give you a little overview on the healthy pipeline of deal flow we're looking forward to dive into deeper in 2021. So as mentioned earlier, we have our portfolio companies during their next rounds, and we've allocated follow-on funding for each one of them. Besides the existing startups, we're looking into different ventures that have been maturing and getting close to Series A, such as Loop, which is a digital freight forwarder for Bangladesh, Gaze Technology, a leading deep tech computer vision company. They are solving the issues around identity recognition and security. We have Shiho, a fast-growing edtech startup offering after-school education to the young Bangladeshi population. And last but not least, we have Romoni, which is a full-stack beauty lifestyle company driven by women for women. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to add, and we will now move on to our panel and Q&A session with Usama and our founders. So Usama, I'll let you take the lead. And yes, thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Afshin, and thank you to our amazing founders for the lovely presentations and updates on their companies during this year. So we have a few questions that were sent, really a few targeted towards Bongo, and we have also some that we put for Loosely Coupled and Chaldal. So I guess since we went in the order of Bongo, Chaldal, Bongo, Loosely Coupled, and Chaldal, maybe we can do that again. If anyone wants to ask any questions, feel free to raise your hands or send me the question privately. And I guess it's a discussion now, for everyone. So feel free to do so. So for question one sent to us from Eli, and Eli, feel free to unmute if you want to interact with Ahad on his answer. Is basically, COVID has, brought about a discounted rate on the ARPU of the user for subscribers for reasons that you described earlier, right? So what is the strategy for these subscribers that are currently on board to upsell them into higher ARPU regions? That's number one. And then obviously also Eli asked a second question, so I'll just wrap it into this first one, where he was just curious about the cash generation profile of the company, which you answered earlier, but maybe you can touch upon it again.
Thanks, Osama. So for the first question, it was how do we want to monetize the users more? It's not that the monetization or the ARPU, like the earnings per user, has necessarily gone down. A lot of the revenue impact that we saw was actually more from the advertising side and a lot of the B2B revenue. We do content distribution and content sales a lot. And then we have SaaS partners. So the revenue from there came down significantly. And in terms of advertising, from March to April, we saw as sharp as 40-50% drop in advertising rates basically overnight. So that had a huge impact, but that advertising rates have started to come back. Now, to answer your question about how do we monetize more from each user, right now, the only options that a user has are basically to watch free or to subscribe and get premium content. Purely in terms of content, we want to offer a lot more options in terms of the content bundle. So we want to offer packages. For example, if there's a cricket series and he can buy that particular series. If there's a blockbuster movie on, he can subscribe and do a digital premiere of that movie. Of course, COVID has also given us opportunity for that. We even see in the West, because a lot of the theaters are closed, that a lot of movies are premiering online. This is an initiative that we had been looking to do anyway, especially going into original productions. Now we have that opportunity not only for our own productions, but also for movies that are being produced in the industry to premiere them online and then charge users on a per view basis. And then other kind of content bundle packages. So that is the first, is upselling the current users by offering them more options and more content packages and content bundles. Beyond that is doing product integration. So offering the users the opportunity to purchase actual physical goods and services while they're watching. That's something we've not launched yet, but we're working on, and we hope to launch soon. And I feel that that's going to increase our ARPU per user significantly. Another initiative we're working on is offering users the ability to purchase data packs. So whether it's topping up to their existing data pack or purchasing a data bundle, which is a very exciting opportunity, because what we've seen is that users are willing to pay, but they're not willing to pay twice. They're either willing to pay for data or for content. And right now, because they're paying for data, because majority of the users are actually using mobile data versus Wi-Fi, they're not willing to pay as much for content. So they'd rather watch it for free. But as soon as we start offering a bundle where you pay one price, you get the data and the content together, it makes the value proposition to the user a lot better. And then from the influencers and the content producers perspective, we're offering them the opportunity to push their own products. So for example, merchandising, or if they want to sell their content digitally, if we have an influencer who's a singer and he's releasing a music album, he can then release his songs or his album online on Bongo and charge users directly. So the ability to do microtransactions for the content creators as well, I think opens up a huge opportunity for us, both in terms of for the user, but also in terms of attracting the content creators to our platform. And then there's gifting. We've seen that that is really, really popular in places like China and Korea, where artists are online, their content is available for free, and their fans gift them. It could be 5 cents, 10 cents, but their fans are donating to them basically to say, we love your content and we want to encourage you. Going beyond that, and a more mid to long-term strategy is definitely integration of potential financial transactions. As Osama touched upon earlier, the remittance is growing year by year, and this year especially. And in fact, it's a $25-30 billion a year industry where Bangladeshis from around the world are sending money back to Bangladesh. Now, payment processing is obviously a huge part of our business, and we're very strong in Bangladesh. We're building up partnerships outside Bangladesh as well. And we're looking into the licensing and the logistics behind allowing a user who's a Bongo paying Bongo registered subscriber on Bongo already, sitting in Dubai or sitting in Malaysia, being able to send money back to Bangladesh. If and when we're able to unlock that, and of course there's a lot of logistical stuff behind it, there's licensing, there's permissions, but we do believe that we can get there eventually. When we can unlock that, that is a completely untapped opportunity, because right now people sending money back to Bangladesh have very high costs. There's a big trust factor issue, and there's many steps that have to be taken place. And the main thing is the transaction cost. People are paying up to 10% to send money back to Bangladesh, and then their relative has to go to a physical store, show their ID, collect the cash, take it. It's not a very seamless process right now. Once we've built the trust, once we have a user on Bongo who's paying us a subscription, whose family members are also using it, whose relatives and friends are also using it, they're maybe doing some microtransactions, maybe they're buying data packs from us. We have all of their information, their credit card, their address, etc. They have trust with us because they've been with us for a few years. And then we say, hey guys, look, you can transfer money to your relative back home if he's also a Bongo user. That conversion process is a lot easier because the trust factor is there. The relationship between us and that user is there. The emotional connection between us and that user is there. So I think that those are the areas where we're trying to increase the monetization opportunities and basically increase the ARPU potential that we can bring out of each user. Osama, please remind me the second part of the question. I hope I was able to cover the first part.
Yes, the second part was what is the cash generation profile of the business? And again, Eli, if you'd like to add to it or have further questions, and as well anyone else in our participants, please feel free to do so.
So do you mean like the revenue and margins?
No, I guess what I'm just trying to understand is obviously from a profitability perspective, as you said, the business is now profitable. But I'm just trying to understand, are you cash flow positive? Are you cash flow negative? How much runway do you have, etc.?
Right now we're cash flow positive. We'll end the year, we'll end this quarter with for Q4, we'll roughly do 100K profit. Now, of course, I'm happy to share with you the detailed financials and everything separately. But we should end the year around 7 million revenue. Of course, Q2 and Q3 were loss. We were in loss because of the revenue impact, but we will be back in profit. In fact, our first quarter of profit was Q4 2018. So 2019 was a profitable year. Again, the margins were low. We did 9.5 million revenue in 2019 with 300,000 in net profit. But our margins have improved. So the percentage has improved this year, and it is increasing. If we were to get zero revenue, we have enough money to last for 12 months. So we're not worried about running out of money. We're cash flow positive. We can sustain this business if we don't raise any money going forward. We also have a lot of opportunities for funding. So, for example, in Bangladesh, we have been granted loan factoring facility to do work order financing. We've also received another potential financing opportunity from IDLC, which is one of the largest non-banking financial institutions, for about $300,000, and with opportunity to scale that up as well. So the fact that we have large financial institutions in Bangladesh now looking at our company, looking at our financials and saying, yes, they're bankable, we will give them money if they want, is also a huge confidence boosting factor for us, you know. And the bottom line is we're confident that we can sustain this business without external financing or without fundraising. And that again is a huge confidence boost for us because it validates the fact that it's a sustainable, real business now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ahad. We have one more question on Bongo, and then I have a few questions for the other founders. So this is from Gezu. Gezu, sorry, Gezu, if I spelled your name, pronounced your name incorrectly. But the question is, what is the partnership with the UN and Bongo? Is there any measurement for social impact being done to assess the actual impact the product will have in the long term?
A very good question. So right now, the partnership we have with them is a content licensing and distribution partnership. So the UN basically had funded certain content production, for example, Sisimpur, which is Sesame Street in Bangla, and it's been a very popular project. There's another content which was actually one of the most popular cartoons in Bangladeshi history called Meena, and it was developed as an educational tool in the 90s when, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but diarrhea was actually a big problem at that time in Bangladesh. And there was a product developed called Orsolin, which is a mix of, it's basically a powder that you mix with water. And it was revolutionary in really combating diarrhea and saving millions of lives across the country. And so Meena was a cartoon that was created at that point to basically help the people, the masses in rural areas and villages, learn about basic healthcare and what to do in certain situations through cartoon characters and through a bird and through a little girl and a little boy. And it was very, very successful. And we recently launched Meena on Bongo, and it did really, really well. So we're very excited about getting these two iconic properties onto Bongo. And we're still exploring other potential synergies with them to see what else can we do beyond that in terms of potential distribution, in terms of other possible synergies that we can create. So that is something that's an ongoing discussion. In terms of how do we measure social impact, that's a very good question. It's something that we're still working on because right now what we can measure is the eyeballs, the views, the consumptions. How does that translate into let's say, for example, how many people watch Mina on Bongo and then go and improve their healthcare because of it, or are educated enough to know what treatment to take for diarrhea or something like that. It's hard to measure. Those are metrics that we definitely do want to understand, because we do see education as a huge potential opportunity for us. The fact is that we're in the person's home, we have the distribution, we have low cost delivery. So how can we take advantage of that to improve the quality of each potential user? And education is very, very strong opportunity there. So to answer your question, the measurement of that metric is something that's not an easy answer, and something that we are definitely working on. And I hope to give you a better answer on that particular question later, but it's something that we're working towards.
Oh, thank you. It's a hard one. Thank you.
Okay, I just have one question to Ahad before I move on to a question to Firoz. Is Ahad, have you, I know that Bongo has also done a lot of education content in COVID specifically, meaning telling people wash your hands. If you don't, this will happen, et cetera, sort of helping people all over the country to have the most effective protection, or let's say measures against COVID. So since this is all exclusively OTT, so digital media, right, that you're delivering this content to, have you found any data that shows that giving people content through Bongo's platform may or has been more or a lot more effective than more traditional sort of channels where education information is spread, for example, through flyers or government announcements on radio or TV?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an initiative that we did, both Bongo doing it on our own. So we did produce a lot of animated content and other kind of content to really help the initiatives of saying, how do you wash your hands? How do you stay clean? What measures should you take? How do you stay safe? We also launched a campaign called basically where so there's two things we noticed, right? The one thing is that we noticed that a lot of the content creators were sitting in March, April, May. A lot of the content creators were really hurting and suffering because all productions came to a halt. The second thing is, obviously, we noticed that people were sitting at home and wanted to consume. So we tied up with a lot of these content creators and allowed them to basically create content at home. So for musicians, they were doing music unplugged at home. For let's say, for example, there's a famous magician. He started doing magic tricks at home, and we created a lot of content in series like that. We also created a series called Quarantine and Chill with 5 influencers, and it followed their 14-day quarantine journey. Every day they did a 5-minute vlog, all 14 of them. And after doing this, we got approached by this couple of government entities to say that, look, we want to use your platform to promote our videos. And they had tied up with cricket players like Shakib Al Hasan and other very, very high profile celebrities to create how-to videos and informative videos. And we believe that it was a lot more successful than traditional like newspaper ads and things that you mentioned, because you can measure the performance, you can measure the consumption. And the fact that when you have an influencer behind, like someone like Shakib Al Hasan, who has 10 million fans on Facebook and he's a national icon, and he's promoting the videos, you have immediate, instant response, right? He shares a video on Facebook, within the next day, you have tens and thousands of hundreds of thousands of people watching it. And we can see that impact immediately, instantly. So because of the fact that, digital distribution has a very fast response rate, we're able to measure it more effectively. So yeah, I do think that it helped. I do think it had a good impact. And for us, it showed us that there is a lot more beyond entertainment, right? I touched on the education earlier, but even this, small 2-week campaign that we did of trying to share information about COVID-related tactics and measures, it really shows us how much reach we have and how impactful having a video platform can be in a country like Bangladesh to share information.
Thank you, Ahad. Thank you. I'm going to be moving on to Loosely Coupled. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to put you in touch with Ahad. We have 15 minutes left on the call to give enough time for the other founders to also discuss. To Firoz at Loosely Coupled. So, you've taken us through your journey, and obviously us as Razor Capital have been with you during that journey, right? Doing frequent calls. So I just want you to be able to guide us or tell us, how did you find the sweet spot, right, this year where where the customers that you were engaging have valued the most, right? It would be good for you to take us through that process and how COVID has had any impact on this, and specifically on how that sweet spot is impacting micro businesses, which I'm not sure if you've told all of our participants, but really also the work that Loosely Coupled is doing has been fantastic to micro businesses who have been not alienated, but unable due to maybe restrictive costs and whatnot associated in digitizing, right, their CRM and so on. So please, can you shine some light on this?
Okay. Let me try to give a very simple journey for a medium-sized organization, because too much small may not be relatable to everyone, but a medium-sized brand. Let us consider, like, if you guys have actually visited Bangladesh, probably you have been in touch with Bibiana or Cat's Eye. These are the brands you have seen. They have showrooms and different areas, and they're kind of a renowned brands in Bangladesh. So when basically they need to move to digital, their first challenge is to put up the product images, size-wise stocks, and all these things for digital. So this is one thing. And then if you look at them, these are fashion industries, so they need to have like how do you promote? Because you see, just promoting the brand and drawing people to in your retail store is very easy. Why? Because people will come, will look through all the dresses, then they will trial and then finally buy. But here there is no trial. So you need to actually describe your clothes, give your size charts and all these things. So you need to actually format them in a proper way. And now when the question of promotion comes, then you have so many designs. Which one do you promote? When someone visits your store, how do you manage the feed? Because you have to tailor the feeds based on the customer's demand. And this is where our technology comes into the picture. And basically we can tailor the feeds nicely. We can run the ads with a minimum possible spending and having lots of traffic. So finally, it's the visitor who will be converting to end sales. I think that is where we have been working very closely with all these brands, so that basically their conversion rate and the right set of audience comes to their digital shops, and we can actually close them to sales. I think this is very specifically we are working on, mainly bringing in right audience and converting them to sales. I think nothing other than that we are focused.
And how did they push you into giving something that people view as highly valuable? Or specifically, how did COVID push you in that direction?
I didn't get the question. Like, can you?
So the question is specifically COVID, and how did your customers push you into formulating a product that they highly value?
Okay, this is something like this was really something I would say like kind of an amazing journey for us, because when we first approached all of them, initially we tried to sell it as a solution and they were willing to buy it as a service fee as well. But you see, once they have taken the solution, they were not able to actually use it properly, even like how to update products, how to do stuff. Then we offered managed service operation to them, like you just give us what you have and we actually formulate their digital strategy, what to put, what kind of offers they should be giving, what should be the pricing and discounting strategies. So everything was very, very data driven. So I think at one point it actually came to us like this, like we were dictating their pricing. And you see, unlike many other e-commerce, the sweetest spot for Loosely Coupled was like we were offering 50% discounts to consumers without we requiring to fund, because we are having all the brands with us. So discounts were funded by them. So in general, for any e-commerce business, the major cost is basically the trade discount, trade promotions and all. And we had none. So we were very much focused on our technology solution, and basically our customers, like our merchants, were funding all the discounts, and these were like really very high discount, like 50%, 60% kind of discount, because they are the brand owners, so they have that room to actually provide this kind of crazy discounts. So I think this is where the partnership was actually very, very good, because since they are the end producers and they are also the brand owners, and we came in with our data analytics, and basically the handshake was very good. And and I think that's how the collaboration happened. So the value prop identification was very good for the consumers.
Thank you, Feroz. Thank you. Razor team or anyone, any questions for Feroz before we move on to Chaldal?
Feroz, we had one question come in from Muhammad from Abu Dhabi, and it was along the lines of your next financing round and what are your plans for growth in the next financing round? What do you plan on doing over there? And then, you know, if you don't mind giving us your 5-year sort of strategy in terms of where you want to take this company and what sort of exit plans you have over this
Actually,
period.
just to give a very short glimpse, because the first few customers that we are operating, we operate on a revenue sharing basis with our customers. So which means basically we take a revenue share from the sales directly, and which has been actually basically our current earnings from these customers are actually I would say quite promising, like $300 to $400 a month from a single merchant. So if you look at the economics that we have from a single merchant, actually, if we just scale up, and we also have partnered with SME Foundation of Bangladesh, we have partnered with bKash, we are their nationwide online onboarding partner. We have also tied up with telcos so that they will be reselling our solution to the SMEs. So our distribution and everything is actually in place. So even if we actually do very conservative thing, only with 20,000 merchants, basically we will be having in the range of like 12 to 15 million US dollar revenue a year. So at this moment we are going well because we have our enterprise businesses also with us. So initially, like if we look at a funding round, we will be probably looking at in the range of like 80 to $100 million valuation for now. And that is what we are actually looking at. And why we will be looking at this funding, particularly for two reasons. You see, we can say that we are quite confident about our technology platform. So now we need some magic brands, like very good top brands, and basically some consumer-based platform. So we are mainly looking at this funding to acquire either some advertising agency who is already serving large brands so that we can right away get them in our platform, and or some existing e-commerce platform where we already have consumers. Because the moment we plug in our technology to an existing e-commerce platform where we have consumers, and if we can get one access to like where we can get all the larger brands together. So the funding round, like the way we are looking at it, probably we will be spending like 70% of this money for acquisition and maybe 30% for the internal and others. So, and if you actually ask me what kind of like the valuation I told, and I think like at least there has to be a meaningful size of the stake, whoever counts onto the board. So that's how basically we are looking at in terms of the funding.
Those are big promises, Feroz. I hope we can achieve that, and I hope Razor Capital can help you get there.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah is the key word here.
No, actually not the Arabian kind of inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
So Feroz, thank you so much for that. I would like to move on to Wasim at Chaldal with a few questions that some of our investors had that I have for you. So I'll go first with my question because then it can lead us easily into the next questions that we have for you. So my question for you is, you know, you have been one of the companies that were fortunate to be very well positioned, right? Okay, fine. You've had challenges from COVID, but at the same time, you were very well positioned to take on that role for e-commerce grocery in the country. And as a result, you've experienced explosive growth, the growth that no one expected, right? And that has everyone excited for what the future of Chaldal holds, right? So this, in the face of this overwhelming demand, right, have that caused you to reconsider your priority list on what you need to execute for Chaldal to move forward? And if so, what have you identified and how are you addressing them? And how does that tie to the questions our investors had? One of our dear investors asked me, Mr. Hamdan, who is here, and please also, gentlemen, feel free to unmute if you'd like to add to anything. He's asked, where do you want to go moving forward outside of Bangladesh? What countries do you want to expand to, right? So there's two questions. How has COVID and the challenges made you reassess your priorities in Chaldal? And I know one of them was expanding to different countries, which we spoke about a lot privately. And then on the other side is, when you do want to move into other countries, where do you want to go?
Sure. Thanks, Usama. Okay, so on the first question, I don't think the vision of Chaldal has really changed that much. If anything, COVID has reinforced the vision. Our belief was that grocery is the largest part of the consumer demand in Bangladesh, right? So it's a $93 billion consumer market, $45 billion grocery market, and it's largely unstructured. And the fact that grocery markets around the world, if you look at UK or any developed country, right, you have 3 or 4 players who have like 20 to 30% market share, because grocery is something that leads to automatic consolidation, right? So if you can invest more in infrastructure, if you're larger, you can predict demand better, you can create like better supply chains. So COVID has just given us the belief that we can actually make this happen, right? So the challenge for us in Bangladesh is that we are one of the if you look at the per capita investment in Bangladesh, it's in venture capital, it's about like less than $1. And if you look at the per capita investment in venture capital in India, it's about like $30 to $35, right? So the US, it would be about $1,000. So we have had to lead the charge, not just in terms of building a business, but also in terms of educating the customer. And COVID has sort of given us a way to to understand that if we actually educate the customers, they stick on. So our priorities going forward would be to give even better service and of course to go deeper into the supply chain, right? So it has moved us probably a year ahead in terms of how much focus we have on the supply chain. Like instead of relying on like a fragmented supply chain, like Bangladeshi retail market, like grocery retail market, it has hundreds and thousands of small retailers, like backed by like thousands of distributors. If we can consolidate that chain where you have like the eggs coming directly from farms into Chaldal warehouses, that would lead to lower cost for our customers, and that would lead to actually less wastage and damage of food. So our focus would be primarily on that, so that we can actually be a cost leader. Like Chaldal is not just a convenient solution, but is also becomes the cheapest way to get groceries, because that's what we see it will be the driving force for adaptation for the Bangladeshi customers. Grocery, if you look at the online grocery business anywhere else in the world, whether it's Instacart in the US or Big Basket in India or Ocado in the UK, and if you look at the amount of investment it has taken them versus the amount of revenue that they have generated, Chaldal ranks very, very well for the amount of investment that has gone into a company like Chaldal and the revenue that we have hit. I think it's really, really great. But we have such a great ratio because investment in Bangladesh is so difficult to come by. So Big Basket on day one started with $10 million in investment because they had a very experienced founding team. We started with like $30,000. So I think not losing focus from there would be key. I do not. I think like I'm still fearful of the fact that if we grow too fast, we may not be able to back it up. So that fear remains. So making the business as solid as possible and not relying on, as Warren Buffett say, kindness of strangers to execute business plan. I think that would be the key focus for us going forward. But having said that, we are starting to get access to different types of finance locally. So we loans are opening up for us, which has been like the traditional way in which the Bangladeshi system has worked. So yeah, so that's number one. Number two is in terms of taking Chaldal international. So that really depends on us being able to find the right market. And we define the right market as markets that have similar characteristics to Dhaka. So the Chaldal model works in highly dense urban areas with poor infrastructure and a new emerging technology, like lots of mobile users, lots of people coming on to the internet. The markets which have similar characteristics would be places like Cairo or Bangkok or Ho Chi Minh. So like traditionally, like the way we think about it, Amazon, started out in Seattle with like USPS as its backbone, and you have the US highway system, that's the sort of infrastructure that Amazon was built on. We have been built on like infrastructure which is like potholes, narrow streets where you can't access the houses without anything but like by foot. Even in cities, right? So we have actually the technology that deals with like this highly dense, highly crowded areas. And these cities, like if you look at what would be the top 10 cities in the year 2050 and what would be large population centers, we would focus on these things with like, especially ones with like poor infrastructure, where our technology probably has a chance to beat the Amazon technology. Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Usama, do we have time for one or two more questions, or?
Yeah. So we're at the end, but I guess we have time for one or two questions. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. This session is being recorded, so if anyone wants the recording as well, we can share it later if you wish to drop out now. But Ramzi, if you have a question or anyone else does, please do so, then we can bring the session to a close.
Wasim, you mentioned something very interesting on return on investment, right? You said the dollar goes quite a long way in Bangladesh, and we've definitely experienced that, having been working there and investing in companies there since 2016. If you don't mind asking, just for the greater good of everyone on the call here, how much was the total that you guys have raised in Bangladesh for Chaldal?
So our latest round, we have not used any of the money from it. So basically, including our working capital and our investment in infrastructure and etc., which I estimate about $4 million, we have spent about like $14 million, of which like $4 million remains on the balance sheet. And the new round that we have raised of $5 million, that completely remains in cash with us at this point to grow and expand.
So that's $14 million, and today we're doing
36.
a 36 if you annualize your monthly run rate.
Yeah, run rate.
So 36 million in revenue on a $14 million investment over the life of your company. I think that's it's a proof that you can achieve economies of scale if you're building correctly in Bangladesh. So congratulations on that. I guess one more question, Wasim, for you. One more question for you, and maybe this is for the benefit of everybody. So you did your Series B earlier this year, and then now you are concluding your Series B1. So it's just a bridge of growth capital from the investors of Series B that's just going to help the company, with working capital and growth over the next few months. What's your Series C plan? That's the first question. What's your Series C plan? Where do you want the company to be in terms of numbers or number of locations, number of warehouses, monthly turnover, whatever it is that your core KPIs are? So what's the plan for that to get to Series C? That's the first question. And the second question is, what's your vision for this company 5 years down the line? I know I asked the same question to Feroz, but would love to hear it from you. Your vision down the line, and who are the potential, companies that you see coming to acquire Chaldal, or maybe you doing an IPO. So just a bit on Series C and a bit on your 5-year vision for the company, please.
Sure. So we have enough capital at this point, we believe, to hit like $100 million run rate. So that would be our goal for the next year, right? So to grow the business another 200% ish, or get to like basically $8 million in monthly revenues from current like $3 million. So, the Series C plan, we need an investor that really moves the needle, right? And we would need it to be kind of a big round, like probably in the range of $20 to $25 million. And I would say that investor who is interested in Series C is someone who understands our business, understands that we have a leading position in Bangladesh, and that is keen on taking this to another country. At this point, on the Bangladesh side of things, all the equations basically point out to the fact that it's just the execution game from our side. Like, yes, there are a few technologies that we are investing in, but that's we do have the firepower in terms of management or technologically to take on another country. So that would be the Series C investors, and I think we would have some of these conversations next year. In terms of the 5-year vision, I mean, I would definitely like Chaldal to be a dominant grocery player, not just in Bangladesh, but globally. In Bangladesh, we don't even, in this country, we don't even have a thing like a commodity exchange. We have applied for like a wallet license. So in 5 years, in Bangladesh side of things, we would actually at least like to see Chaldal as like the local Alibaba, if you will, like with our businesses in transport, in warehousing, maybe in non-grocery e-commerce as well. And we would also like ourselves to have a grocery business in at least two more countries. In terms of exit, I think it's still too early to think about that. I mean, I think we can take this a lot further. And certainly if the business is doing well cash flow wise, I don't see why we need to be eager to get bought out. Thank you.
Thank you, Wasim. So before we wrap it up, one quick yes/no question. I got one question from one of our participants asking if there is any markup on the products sold on Chaldal vs retail, as it is usually the case in Europe, which is 15 to 20%.
No. So our products are actually cheaper today. If you buy eggs in Dhaka, from the retail market, it's 95. If you buy eggs in Chaldal, it's 89. And we don't burn a single cent on any of the products that we sell. So basically, no, there is no markup. We are trying to be cheaper than the local market.
Okay, thank you. Usama.
Okay, so that brings our session to an end. First of all, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for giving us your time. I hope this was educational and interesting and informative for everyone. You, of course, have our emails. Please feel free to reach out to any of us personally, privately, whenever. We're always happy to chat. If you would like to chat with the founders as well, happy to do so. And when the time is right, if you'd like to visit Dhaka as well, we'd be happy to take you there as well. So without further ado, thank you. We hope everyone stays safe and you have a splendid Christmas for those who celebrate it, and Happy New Year in advance.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Hope the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Bye-bye, everyone.